Welcome to Nightmare County. I'm your host, Randall M. Gould, and here we are again with another episode basically about Bruceploitation flicks. Except in this one, we're going to talk about the 10 best or 10 Bruceploitation flicks that I recommend. While there are literally hundreds of Bruceploitation flicks, I did my best to break it down to 10 flicks that are some of the most enjoyable. Now, this list doesn't even include some of my favorite ones, but I think these are ones that are most accessible and the ones that are easiest to find. And also, they're just a lot of fun, especially if you've got a lot of friends around and everything. You either enjoy the action sequences or find yourself smiling at all the craziness that's within these flicks. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this list. As I've watched these flicks over the years and everything. Most of these flicks can be found like on Tubi TV, Pluto, Amazon Prime, and just about pretty much wherever there's a streaming service. Some are very hard to find. Some of them still have different titles and such that they've been re-released and released over and over again. So some of them are hard to find. But these are the most accessible and the easiest to find, I do believe. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this and go over the 10 best or 10 Bruceploitation flicks I think you'll enjoy. Starting off this list at numero uno, we have Game of Death from 1978. Game of Death is the last film that the real Bruce Lee was involved in. With over 100 minutes actually shot before Bruce Lee's death, it's set in Golden Harvest's archives for several years before they decided to rehire Enter the Dragon's director Robert Clouse to come in and finish the film with 2 stand-ins for Bruce Lee. The actual footage much used in the Game of Death sequences were directed by Bruce Lee himself. The plot from the 1978 version was different than Bruce Lee's original vision. The plot from the 1978 version has Billy Lowe, played by Bruce Lee and his lookalikes, struggling against a racketeering ring or syndicate after gaining international success after becoming a martial arts movie star. When Billy refuses to be intimidated by the syndicate's henchmen, they order his assassination, and they believe they succeed, but despite being shot in the face and scarred, Billy lives on and decides to take this opportunity as a chance to fake his death and exact his revenge. The film was rounded out with a nice cast that included NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dan Inosanto, Sammo Hung, and Robert Wall, and many others. While the original footage of the Game of Death is far more impressive and shows how epic it would have been, it can be found in a documentary called Bruce Lee, A Warrior's Journey. The 78 version, while only using a little more than 11 minutes of the original footage, still manages to make a watchable film that can still be enjoyed. Coming in at number 2, we have The Chinese Stuntman from 1982, starring Bruce Lee as kung fu expert who, after a series of events, becomes a stunt double for kung fu films, while also unraveling a plot that the film's producers are trying to kill him so they can cash on his insurance policy. This was also directed by Bruce Lee, and in many ways is the best film he made, offering a good plot with well-done twists that pulls you in order to make you care about its cast. A film well worth checking out. At number 3, we have Challenge of the Tiger from 1980, a film about 2 CIA agents, one a kung fu master played by Bruce Lee, and the other a suave womanizer played by Richard Harrison, who tracked down the stolen formula for a super sterility drug from Spain to Hong Kong, all while they battle a real bull, neo-Nazi terrorists, and a Vietnamese spy ring for its possession. This is another film that not only starred one of the Bruce lookalikes, it was directed and written by its star as well. While the film is a bit crass and lives up to its exploited genre labeling, it offers a whole lot of fun. The opening sequence is one for the ages, along with Bruce Lee's fight with a real bull. There's some very cool sequences within the film, one being Lee's fight with a bull that employs some crude X-ray animation. The movie overall has a wacky surreal factor to it that makes it all that more enjoyable. Number 4, we have Enter the Fat Dragon from 1978, starring the legendary Sammo Hung, who not only starred but directed as well. It is basically a parody of Bruce Lee's Way of the Dragon and a satire of the whole Bruceploitation genre during the 1970s. The plot involves a farmer played by Sammo who ventures to the city and helps his family battle a gang of thugs. The film showcases Sammo's athleticism and comedic ability in great stride. A total blast to watch, and was recently remade in 2020 starring Donnie Yen. At number 5, The Dragon Lives Again from 1977 is a fantasy comedy hybrid in which the soul of Bruce Lee ends up in the underworld, in which he meets an assortment of pop culture icons like James Bond, Clint Eastwood, The Godfather, and even Dracula. While in the underworld, Bruce Lee also befriends characters like Popeye and the One-Armed Swordsman. The film is basically a giant tribute to the fans who love Bruce Lee. The actor who plays Bruce Lee in the film is the fantastic Bruce Leung, who also appeared in numerous amount of martial art flicks, including the very funny Kung Fu Hustle, directed by Stephen Chow. The Dragon Lives Again is surrealistic and just way out there, allowing for a great time. At number 6, enter The Game of Death from 1978, starring Bruce Lee. Named Mr. Aang, who is hired by a Chinese espionage group to recover a secret document crucial in helping them win a victory. The document is hidden on the top floor of a 6-story building, meaning Mr. Aang must fight his way to the top, floor by floor. The film also stars Bolo, who also starred in Enter the Dragon and most famously is the villain in Jean-Claude Van Damme's Bloodsport. While the plot is next to non-existent, the fight scenes allow Lee to shine. At number 7, we have Fist of Fury Part 2 from 1977, starring Bruce Lee. Fist of Fury Part 2 is a direct sequel to Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury, or The Chinese Connection, as it was called here in the States. So this film is also called Chinese Connection Part 2. The film involves Lee playing Qin Shan, brother to Bruce Lee's Qin Shin, who goes to Shanghai to mourn and avenge his brother's death due to the Japanese. While in no way better than Lee's original film, it is better than most Bruceploitation flicks. That was even warranted a sequel in 1979 titled Fist of Fury Part 3, or also known as Chinese Connection Part 3. Lee's martial arts expertise are quite good in this flick as well, especially his limited use of the nunchucks. At number 8, Last Fist of Fury from 1977, starring Dragon Lee. With a plot that involves the Japanese invading China and bullying the Chinese kung fu schools, so in comes Dragon Lee to take them all on. The villains are all over the place in this flick, from ninjas and very unusual weapons. Hell, even a half-German Japanese supervillain arrives to take on Dragon Lee in the ultimate showdown. Dragon Lee was the more beefed-up version of the Bruce Lee lookalikes, and this may be considered his best Bruceploitation flick. It's a lot of fun, and if seen with friends, should offer plenty of smiles. At number 9, X of the Dragon, Enter the Tiger from 1976. It is another Bruce Lee affair that has him playing a student of Bruce Lee's who travels to Hong Kong to search for answers regarding his master's death. While in Hong Kong, he teams up with Susie Young in order to take on the Hong Kong Mafia in connection to the martial arts legend's death. X of the Dragon, Enter the Tiger is one of the more well-known of the Bruceploitation flicks, as you can pretty much find it on almost every platform. It was also proven to be popular enough in order to receive a sequel later on called Return of the Tiger that happens to co-star one of martial arts cinema's most prominent stars, Angela Mao. And rounding out this top 10 list of crazy Bruceploitation flicks is The Clones of Bruce Lee from 1979 that starred not one, but 4 Bruce Lees. Those being Dragon Lee, Bruce Tai, and Bruce Lee. Of all the films on this list, this is without a doubt the craziest, campiest, and sits proudly at the top of its so bad it's good list of Bruceploitation flicks. The plot is basically about a scientist who takes brain samples of the real Bruce Lee in order to make Bruce Lee-like clones to fight crime in Hong Kong. Oh yeah, and you have Bolo as a trainer to help the Bruce Lee lookalikes fight. This film has been called the Plan 9 from outer space of martial arts cinema, and it is that wholeheartedly. It's that bad, but you would be hard-pressed to find a more enjoyable film to watch that is sure to offer many laughs and smiles. And yet, it is also the only film of all the Bruceploitation flicks that has 2 Bruce Lee lookalikes fighting with Dragon Lee and Bruce Lee. And there you have it. These are the 10 films from the Bruceploitation flicks that I think are like I said, the most accessible and the easiest to watch. There are a lot more than this. I mean, there's literally hundreds of these flicks out there, but these have either some of the zaniest plots, some of the best action sequences in it, or just they're so bad it's good. I mean, they'll make you laugh, or get you pumped up with its action sequences. They're all fun. I find them. Are there better flicks? Yeah, I could have added a lot more. Films like Bruce Lee's Dynamo, which to me is another favorite, or Bruce's Deadly Fingers. But I had to put Game of Death at the top of this list because the Bruceploitation genre had already started, right? With as soon as Bruce Lee died and everything, the Bruceploitation genre had already started. And then Golden Harvest had his unfinished film, Game of Death, sitting in their archives, and they were like, you know what? Let's capitalize on this Bruceploitation genre and put out Game of Death, directed by Robert Klaus and Bruce Lee. And what sucks is that film only, the Game of Death from '78 only has, like I said, only 11 minutes from that footage of the actual footage of all the footage that was shot. And if you go and find the documentary Bruce Lee, it has a it shows a lot of the all the Game of Death tower sequences, and they are some of the best fight sequences of almost all of Bruce Lee's movies. I'm sorry, I keep stuttering here, but and it's very enjoyable. It's really, and that's also it's a great documentary. It's inspiring and everything. But those sequences from the Game of Death they show within that are just, they're epic, and it shows you how great that film was going to be. I mean, that movie's could have been so good. I mean, just those sequences alone would influence other movies, video games, and music and everything. So on. That's how good it was. But the '78 version, I'll never forget as a kid when I saw the '78 version of Game of Death. I was probably like 12 years old, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, there's this one sequence where Bruce an actor is wearing a cutout mask of Bruce Lee's face. And I remember watching that, and I laughed so hard because I was like, how could they have done something like this? Why would they use a cutout? And this is before, I had the internet and even found out why this wasn't a real Bruce Lee movie. This was just a bunch of lookalikes and stuff like that. I'm thinking this was a legit copy of Bruce Lee's film catalog, unlike Bruce Lee's Deadly Fingers and such. I would find out that wasn't even part of Bruce Lee's film catalog. Well, I thought Game of Death was, because there's a lot that the sequences where Bruce Lee's actually in it. It was very and the way they spliced it made it all that believable. Except like later on, you're sitting there rewatching, and you're like, that's a cutout of Bruce Lee's face. And there's times when you really know they really. If you're a fan, if you watch horror movies, Evil Dead, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, they call this thing where they have a shimp it, where because they have stand-ins look just like Shemp from Three Stooges, and that's what they basically did with Bruce Lee's movies. They shimped it by having these. You always see the back shot of somebody while all the action's happening in front of them. But I still enjoyed the Game of Death, but I'm glad I found the Warrior's Journey, the documentary, if that I was referencing earlier. But it just shows you that. But anyways, Golden Harvest decided to capitalize on the Bruceploitation genre with Bruce Lee's on film, and I would say that movie has the better production of all the Bruceploitation flicks, because it literally does. Especially having the real footage of Bruce Lee fight sequences just elevates it. It just sucks that, it gets thrown into the Bruceploitation genre because that's what it was. They wanted to capitalize on the genre at the time, but I still enjoy it. I enjoy the Bruceploitation genre, like I said. They're all fun films in their own right and everything. And I don't know if this will be the last video I make on the Bruceploitation genre, as I would like to talk about some other good or great, pretty fun Bruceploitation flicks. I might do that. Like if there's a lot of these films don't have Blu-ray releases. From the Bruceploitation genre. I keep messing it up. The only ones that I know of that are the ones I've gotten so far are Dynamo, Bruce's Deadly Fingers, and this one right here. Sorry about that. Fist of Fear, Touch of Death, and that movie's not even a real movie about Bruce Lee. It's just a bunch of. It's like a documentary basically, and it's probably one of the worst put together documentaries. But I also enjoyed it at the same time, because it was the first time I'd ever seen small footage of Bruce Lee from his younger films before I would eventually find the longer sets of footage of those old films that Bruce Lee had made before he became a big star and everything. But yeah, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been fun doing the Bruceploitation flicks. Like I said, if you can, most of these flicks can be found on Tubi TV, Pluto, Amazon Prime. So they're pretty much easy to find, or some other streaming service. Like I said, most of them have been put on Blu-ray, so the quality of them are not as good as others. Obviously, the Bruce Lee's film catalog of films that have been put out on the streaming services have the better quality to them, and it followed by Bruce Lee's and then Dragon Lee's. But you can't really go wrong with Bruce Lee's films. They're all really good, and Dragon Lee's, they're good as well. Bruce Lee's, not Dragon Lee's. He made a bunch of films directed by Godfrey Ho, who I'm looking forward to talking about, and Richard Harrison, who I mentioned earlier in one of the other flicks. They made a bunch of ninja flicks, and I'm really looking forward to talking about ninja movies, because there's some bad ones and they're fun. But anyways, I'm taking up too much of your time, and I want to thank you for taking the time out to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to, you can hit me on Facebook and Instagram under Nightmare County. I'm probably going to start up a TikTok pretty soon, so I'll let you know when I do that. But yeah, you can find me under Nightmare County under those social media groups and everything, or you can comment below the video here on YouTube. I want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you for giving me your time, and don't be a stranger, and tune in.